You're still wearing that same sour face, huh? This high-end restaurant isn't a place for someone like you. The moment he noticed me, the manager started grinning and immediately began picking on me. Are you washing dishes here? You're a high school graduate at your age and can't even do your job. I doubt anyone would hire you. His mistress laughed along with him, shaking her shoulders mockingly as she made fun of me. I see how it is. Hey, you get out of the customer's entrance. We have $1 million deal with a major construction company coming up. He made a shooing gesture like he was chasing away a stray cat and glanced at me briefly. Nothing had changed since we worked together. If anything, they had both gotten worse. But thanks to that, I could retaliate without hesitation. With anger burning in my chest, I calmly began my counterattack to drag them into the abyss. My name is John West. I work at a construction company. Our company mainly handles primary subcontracting work, receiving projects from major construction firms and distributing the work to secondary subcontractors. I've been the manager of the construction management department for 3 years. Despite the busy schedule, I found my work fulfilling and rewarding. But then, one day, a shocking event occurred. Vice President Smith staged a coup. The CEO, Mr. Anderson, was ousted without having time to prepare for his subordinates' rebellion. Mr. Smith's cunning move was to appoint Mr. Anderson as chairman, a position with no real power for appearance's sake, while he took control of the company as the new CEO. Naturally, the company was in chaos for a while, but many employees were too scared to oppose Smith's strong-arm tactics, fearing they might be next. During this time, Mr. Smith steadily placed his people in upper management. He also brought his son Steve, who was working for another company at the time, and made him the manager of the construction management department directly above me. The worst part was that Steve was even more arrogant than his father. He flaunted his position as the CEO's son, bossing everyone around from the moment he joined. He also openly looked down on employees who graduated from local colleges or high school, boasting about his degree from a prestigious private university. I caught his eye especially because I wasn't a college graduate yet held a managerial position. Ever since he became the manager, it became a daily occurrence for him to harass me, like not passing on important information. If I made even a slight mistake, he hurled terrible insults at me, calling me a high school graduate loser and such. Even so, I enjoyed my work, so I endured these treatments and diligently continued my duties. Then, after a while, a new person joined our company. Her name is Catherine. I heard that she was introduced by Steve and switched to this construction industry from another job because of that connection. Catherine was assigned directly under Steve in the construction management department, making her my subordinate. Today is her welcome party. The atmosphere in the company, where Mr. Smith holds the real power, is somewhat tense, and everyone seems uncomfortable, but the drinking party was proceeding without any trouble. As the drinks flowed, the mood relaxed. I got to go to the bathroom. However, on my way back, I witnessed an unbelievable scene. I couldn't help but peek at the familiar voices coming from behind the hallway shadows. There I saw Steve and Catherine whispering to each other. Hey, let's sneak out together. This party is so boring. Don't be unreasonable. We can't have the guest of honor and the manager missing from your welcome party, can we? The two people saying this were clearly not maintaining the usual distance between a boss and a subordinate. Catherine was leaning on Steve in a way that only lovers would. That's when it hit me. Wait a minute, Steve is married. Does that mean they're having an affair? Before they noticed me, I quickly pulled my face back and hurried back to my seat, still confused. Eventually, they returned as if nothing had happened. Seeing how natural they were, I realized that their relationship hadn't just started yesterday or today. Determined not to get involved, I decided to keep what I had seen to myself. But from then on, Steve often took Catherine out for fieldwork or inspections, leaving their desks empty more and more frequently. Their behavior became so blatant that everyone in the department started to notice, but no one dared to say anything. So, their actions escalated one day when it had become an unspoken rule within the department about their relationship. Catherine made a major mistake in her work. However, the first person Steve scolded was me. Catherine is still not used to the work here. It's your job as her supervisor to support her. Yes, I'm sorry. By the way, when I assigned that task to her, I had repeatedly warned her it's crucial to double-check, so don't send emails to the client on your own. This was because Catherine had made similar mistakes before, but in the end, it seemed she hadn't listened to my warnings at all and once again caused this clerical error through her own arbitrary decisions. Well, it was still true that I had failed to supervise properly. Oh, come on. That's why people with only a high school diploma are useless. I can't understand why someone like you is even a manager. It must be because that idiot former CEO promoted his favorites without any reason. I was instinctively angry at these words, but it was also true that Mr. Anderson liked me. If I clumsily argued back, it would only harm Mr. Anderson's position, so I apologized once more and then went to guide Catherine on her work. Catherine, everyone makes mistakes, but this is the second time you've made this error, right? I believe I told you to take proper notes of what you're instructed to do, I said. Instead of scolding her, I calmly explained. Catherine looked at me with an annoyed expression. Then in a childish, condescending tone, she replied, "Oh, did you say that? Sorry, I just can't remember things from guys I'm not into." As she fiddled with her overly decorated nails and flashy blouse, completely inappropriate for the office, she chuckled mockingly. Even I was taken aback. "Catherine, this is a workplace. It's for working. Your preferences don't matter here. Of course, in your private time, you can feel however you want, but as long as you're being paid, please take your job seriously." I said this a bit more firmly than usual. However, Catherine seemed displeased with this, and the next day I was called in by Steve, the manager. "Hey you, I heard you said some awful things to Catherine. Poor girl is deeply hurt." I frowned at his words. This morning, Catherine came to work looking more glamorous than usual, and I even saw her making a hair salon appointment instead of working. She didn't seem deeply hurt at all, but that's beside the point. There's a misunderstanding. I just gave her some advice on her work attitude. But Steve glared at me as if I were a pesky bug. "What are you, a mere high school graduate, defying me?" "Fine, I see we need some time to reflect." Steve paused and then smirked. "From today, you're demoted to a regular employee, and Catherine will take your manager position." What? I was utterly stunned by this sudden decision. What is this guy saying? Is he serious? Hey, wait a minute, this is really unacceptable. Besides, Catherine doesn't even understand the work of this department at all. However, Steve, the manager, with his face turning red, yelled back at me, not listening to my objection at all. "Shut up. Shut up. Don't talk like you know anything, you bottom feeder. Do you know who I am? I'm the CEO's son. We're the ones running this company. If you got complaints, then get out." With that, Steve threw the documents that were on his desk at me. "Write your resignation letter right now. If you don't, I'll throw this ashtray next," he said, grabbing the ashtray from his desk. I reluctantly turned on my heel and left his office. Steve's voice seemed to echo throughout the department, and my colleagues looked at me with concern. But amidst the commotion, only Catherine was smirking at me, her eyes filled with a look of mockery and a clear sense of superiority. Seeing her face, I realized that surely Steve had been asked to promote her by his mistress. At that moment, I thought, well, whatever, and felt completely drained. The fact that Steve was using his father's position to privatize the company, Catherine was goofing off without doing the minimum amount of work, and I had to get caught up in their personal drama. All of it was just too ridiculous to bear. If there was one thing I regretted, it was about Mr. Anderson, who had always looked out for me. Once things settled down, I decided to apologize to him properly. Then, I quietly wrote my resignation letter and quit the company abruptly. A few months later, I found a new job at another company in the same construction industry and was busy working every day. Today, I was heading to an upscale restaurant for a business meeting with another company. Just before the appointed time, I arrived at the entrance of the restaurant, which had a calm atmosphere with a modern touch. There, I encountered two familiar faces for the first time in a while. It was Steve and Catherine, *****. They seemed to notice me too. Steve's eyes widened for a moment but then quickly turned into a sneer, *****. Oh, look who it is. John, the guy we kicked out of our company. Still got that miserable look on your face. What are you doing here? This high-end restaurant isn't a place for a bottom feeder like you," he said, ****. In agreement with her lover's sneers, Catherine chuckled while wearing flashy clothes that were not suitable for business meetings. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. Oh, maybe this guy is working as a dishwasher here. He's only got a high school diploma at his age, and since he can't do his job, he can't get a job anywhere else, she mocked. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. Steve, the department manager, gave a murky laugh at Catherine's sarcasm. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. Yeah, that's right. You're absolutely right. Catherine is not only beautiful but also quick-witted, unlike some loudmouthed high school graduates. Steve added, asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. Oh, Steve, stop it, Catherine said, but the two of them, without any regard for the public, kept flirting and sticking close to each other. They showed no signs of change after several months, but rather seemed to be getting worse. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. However, Steve took my silent amazement as a convenient interpretation and continued with a twisted smile. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. Hey, a lowly part-timer like you should be using the back entrance. Get out of the way quickly. We have a $2 million business deal with a major construction company coming up, he said, dismissively gesturing as if shooing away a stray cat. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. I let out a sigh and responded calmly, excuse me, but the person you're about to meet for the business deal is me. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. Steve looked at me with a face that couldn't understand the meaning of my words. Beside him, Catherine also had her mouth open in astonishment. Ignoring the two of them, I continued. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. Despite claiming this is an important business deal, you didn't even bother to check the name of the person in charge on the other side. Well, Catherine has never checked the contract documents in the first place. But for you, Steve, that's surprising, I said, letting out another small sigh. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. Still half doubting, Steve snorted. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. Huh, there's no way a lowly high school graduate could get hired at that major company. I get you're frustrated, but don't lie so blatantly. Typical of the lowly, he said. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. However, I cut off Steve's words midway. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. This is ridiculous. What would I gain by lying at this point? Oh, you want proof? Here, let me give you my business card. I said. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. As I took out my business card from my inner pocket, they snatched it away and stared at it, their faces gradually turning pale. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. Yes, after leaving that company, I had immediately secured a job at a major construction company. In fact, I had been headhunted by the other party for a long time. They highly valued my years of achievements and experience. Furthermore, I had obtained the challenging architect certification while working, which added to my evaluation. I explained, asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk, glancing sideways at them, speechless with astonishment. I added, by the way, that's my old business card before it was reprinted. I have recently obtained my architect certification, and the new ones are being printed. I studied architecture by correspondence at Boston Architecture College, continued studying while working, and obtained my architect certification while at my previous company. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. What, an architect? Steve muttered. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. Although Steve used to look down on others as a businessperson in the construction industry, he seemed to understand the difficulty of obtaining the architect license. Responding to his reaction, I gave them a deliberately exaggerated smile. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. Did you finally believe me? I'm currently in charge of developing a new town for the company, and today was indeed for that business meeting, right? I said. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. Oh yeah, yes, Steve replied, taking a step forward to subtly intimidate them. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. I asked, and both Steve and Catherine nodded awkwardly, their faces pale with unease. After a pause, Steve forced a smile on his tense face and said to me, John, you sly dog. If you had told us earlier about your skills, we wouldn't have been so surprised. Honestly, I've always thought there was something different about you compared to the others. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. Just a moment ago, he was mocking me for being a high school graduate, and now he's spewing insincere praise. It's typical brown-nosing, but the sheer audacity is almost impressive. Catherine, following Steve's lead, plastered a sycophantic smile on her face. Oh, me too. I've always thought you were really smart, John, and actually, you're totally my type. Oh, you're making me blush, staring at me like that. As she swayed her hips suggestively, it seemed like she was trying to flirt, but to me, it just looked like she was doing a weird dance. The moment I revealed my true identity, their attitudes changed completely. I guess they got into an affair because they're so similar. Holding back another sigh, I answered without unnecessary comments, "We shouldn't waste any more time. Shall we start the meeting?" They looked surprised but quickly nodded. They probably thought I'd sabotaged the meeting after being kicked out of the company, but I had a specific purpose in saying that. Once I sat down, I immediately asked them to present the contract estimate. Here's the estimate. We appreciate your consideration. Ignoring Steve's overly humble demeanor, I reviewed the document. My eyes stopped at the materials cost section. This was indeed clever. "Excuse me," Steve called out, confused by my sudden pause. I looked straight at him and asked, "Are these figures for the materials cost accurate?" I didn't miss the momentary flicker in Steve's eyes. This confirmed my suspicion. "Catherine," I continued, "we've received a tip that you have been inflating material costs and embezzling the difference. I'll ask again, are these figures correct?" "Well, that is?" Without raising my voice, perhaps the intensity of my demeanor pressured her, causing Catherine to become visibly nervous. While closely watching their behavior, I feigned ignorance and tilted my head. "This is strange. The estimates we provided earlier differ slightly in every category. These are small discrepancies that are easy to overlook individually, but when summed up, they amount to a considerable figure. Don't they? Is that so?" The two of them, uneasy under my questioning, fidgeted and exchanged glances. Eventually, unable to withstand the pressure, Steve slammed his hand on the table and, raising his voice as if to intimidate me, shouted, "That's a baseless accusation. We haven't done anything wrong." With that, he hurriedly left his seat, leaving the estimate documents behind. "Hey, wait, don't leave me here." Catherine, left behind, also shouted and chased after Steve, leaving the store. Quietly watching them leave, I casually made a phone call. I'd arranged to meet the person on the other end the following day and put the remaining estimate documents into my bag. The next day, I had taken a pre-approved day off and was visiting someone's house. After identifying myself through the intercom at the gate, the owner of the house came out to greet me. "Mr. Anderson," as I mentioned over the phone. I nodded my head, and Mr. Anderson nodded once. "Ah, you did well. Thank you." Yes, it was Mr. Anderson, who had been ousted by Mr. Smith, who had told me that Steve and Catherine might be inflating the cost of materials. A while back, I had visited this house to report that I had left that company, found a new job, and obtained my long-desired architect license. I also mentioned that my new company had a scheduled business meeting with Steve regarding the new town development project. It was then that Mr. Anderson asked me to investigate whether their suspected overcharging was true. Here's the estimate. Once inside the room, I handed Mr. Anderson the estimate I had received from Steve the day before. Mr. Anderson carefully checked the problematic areas, sighed slightly as if exhausted, then straightened up and nodded his head to me. "You really did a great job. I'm grateful. I knew it was unfair to ask you, who had already left the company, but I couldn't obtain conclusive evidence with my resources." Hearing the regret in his voice, I quickly shook my head. "Please don't say that. I'm the one who should be thanking you. You helped me so much, but I ended up leaving the company. I took this on because I wanted to be of some help, at least this time. Back when I was studying to obtain my architect license, Mr. Anderson provided me with helpful reference books and adjusted my work schedule to accommodate my studies. I believe I was able to obtain my architect license thanks to those days." Mr. Anderson eventually looked down at the estimate and muttered, "Thank you. Leave the rest to me." Then he smiled warmly and said once again, "Congratulations on passing the exam. I always believed you could do it, John." "Thank you." I accepted his words with gratitude. Mr. Anderson looked at me for a moment, and then his smile turned slightly wistful. "My true desire is for you to come back, but at the same time, I think you can go even further in that company and fully utilize your talents," he said. He gave a small chuckle, admitting he was being a bit selfish. Mr. Anderson must be planning to use the estimate I handed over to take down Smith's faction quickly. While the Smith family has been running wild in that company, Mr. Anderson hasn't been quietly retired. He's been gathering allies among employees who opposed Mr. Smith and former executives who were pushed out, secretly preparing to reclaim control. I had considered returning to that company myself, but I apologize for any inconvenience. However, I want to test my abilities in a new place. After changing jobs and achieving my dream, I became more ambitious. I wanted to see how far I could go. Mr. Anderson nodded with a smile and said, "Yeah," as I quietly finished speaking. "That's fine. It's your life and I have my life to live too. Even in my old age, there's still much I can do. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of dreams you'll build from now on." I clasped his offered right hand firmly with both of mine. His hand, marked by various joys and struggles, was very warm. I promised myself I would never forget that warmth. After that, Mr. Anderson reported the embezzlement case to the police. As a result, the manager was arrested as the ringleader. Catherine was also sent to the prosecutor as an accomplice. To my surprise, further investigations revealed additional crimes by Steve, the manager. He had used similar methods in his previous job to inflate claims and pocket the difference. No wonder he seemed so skilled at it. I felt oddly satisfied understanding this, but Steve's actions became a significant scandal as he had been moving from company to company committing these crimes. Steve was rearrested and is expected to receive a prison sentence. Mr. Smith was forced to resign due to intense pressure both inside and outside the company, taking responsibility for his son's failures. As a result, Mr. Anderson was reinstated as the new CEO. I heard employees cried at his powerful declaration to rebuild the company from its foundation. It may take some time for things to settle, but I'm confident that Mr. Anderson will turn the company into a healthier organization. Meanwhile, I've been busy with the development of the new town. We plan to build high-rise condos with a theme of coexistence with nature and the city center. I'm in charge of the design from scratch. Together with my team, we're exploring better design ideas. Incidentally, we received a new estimate and have formally signed a contract with Mr. Anderson's company. Every day, I savor the joy of shaping my dreams and those of my team into reality. I gripped it firmly in my hand. I was torn whether I should really go ahead with it. My eyes turned to the woman in front of me. Her cheeks were blushing and her eyes glistened as she looked at me. Seeing her up close was breathtaking. She was so beautiful. I'm sure she must have steeled herself to be here. If that's the case, I'd like to respond to her wishes too because I felt the same way as she did. So I pushed it in all the way. I'll never forget her joy in that moment for as long as I live. What I'm about to tell you is about a fateful reunion with a woman who used to hate me. I'm James Peterson, a 32-year-old gynecologist working in a hospital. Although I am now steadily gaining experience as a doctor and working well, I actually went a long way to become a doctor. I had 2 failed attempts before I got into med school, or rather, I didn't take the exam for 2 years. I was in a top-performing class in high school and within the range of getting into a medical school. But on the day of the preliminary exam, my chronically ill mother collapsed. The exam became the least of my concerns, and I didn't go to the exam center. I spent 2 years supporting my mother, who was on the brink of life and death. It might have been a detour, but there's nothing more important than life, so I have no regrets. Sadly, my mother passed away, but I'm glad that I could be there for her. I always dreamed of becoming a doctor, and through my mother's battle with illness, my desire became even stronger. So 2 years later than my peers, I entered medical school. Now, working as a doctor, a woman transferred to my hospital, the beautiful classmate from high school who used to hate me. Amanda became my patient. Well, it would be more accurate to say that she was always competing with me rather than hating me. Amanda and I went to the same preparatory school. We were always competing for top grades, and she treated me as her rival on her own accord. I didn't particularly feel that she was a rival, but it is true that competing with her motivated me to study harder. Maybe because she saw me as a rival, she was always tough on me. She often told me, "I will not lose to you." But I admired her competitiveness, which was a stark contrast to my laid-back personality, and I thought it was cool. In high school, I hadn't told anyone except my homeroom teacher why I gave up on the exam. Of course, I didn't tell Amanda either. I couldn't take the exam because my mother was critically ill. It was serious, and I was scared. I was afraid to say it out loud. I didn't want to say my mother was in critical condition. If I said it, the scene of my mother collapsing in front of me would come to my mind. I couldn't bear the sympathetic looks from everyone. But Amanda, not knowing the reason, seemed to think that I had run away from the exam. You didn't have the confidence, and you ran away, not even going to the exam site. You're such a coward. She insulted me like that, and wouldn't talk to me from then on. She got accepted into a prestigious university. It was the university she had always claimed she would get into since our freshman year of high school. She was honest with her feelings and straightforward. She was hard on herself and others, but she never shied away from making the effort that matched. To me, she seemed dazzling. Who would have thought that Amanda would become my patient? I wonder how she will react. The reunion was a mix of happiness and a bit of fear. I met Amanda when I was shopping at a convenience store before work. She didn't know I was her attending doctor yet because I hadn't greeted her as such. Also, maybe because I was in my casual clothes. She glared at me the moment she saw me and slightly laughed. You're a high school grad and sick, such a loser in life, huh? It seems that because of my cancellation of the high school exam, I was a loser in her eyes. I'm your doctor. What? What are you talking about? I showed her my name tag, which stated my title as a doctor. To the bewildered her, she was staring at it in a daze. After revealing at the store that I was her doctor, Amanda left the place without saying a word. I went to her room to greet her later, but she didn't say anything. Perhaps she was still angry. She had been diagnosed with ovarian cancer at another hospital and was transferred to my hospital for surgery. The hospital where I work has a good reputation for gynecology and attracts patients from other hospitals for surgery. After examining her condition at this hospital, it seems likely that one of her ovaries will need to be removed. The extent of the progression and the treatment plan after the surgery would be determined. But then Amanda started saying something completely unexpected. I'm not going to have surgery. Excuse me, what did you say? Listen carefully, you dummy. I said I'm not having surgery. If you got it, just leave me alone. I explained the importance of the surgery, but she wouldn't listen. I wondered if she didn't like me, so I had other doctors and nurses talk to her about the surgery. But no matter who talked to her, Amanda refused the surgery, and she wouldn't give any reasons. I wanted to respect the patient's wishes, but I wanted her to make a choice that values her life more than anything. I was concerned that she wouldn't give me a reason. One day, as I was troubled with how to deal with Amanda, I passed by her room and heard arguing voices from inside. So it's going to be an ovarian removal. We have to call off the engagement. I saw for the first time someone who had come to visit Amanda. He was raising his voice, sounding irritated at the patient. One of my ovaries will still be left. There won't be any problem. You don't know that for sure. What about the chance of getting pregnant? It's going to be lower than normal, right? Can you even have children? If you can't, there is no point in us getting married. Please don't say things like that. I'm not going to have the surgery. If I don't, both of my ovaries will remain. A derisive laugh from the man echoed through the hospital room. So there won't be a complete cure for the cancer, right? And my wife will be a cancer patient. In the first place, that's out of the question. There is only one thing I want for my wife, to bear children that will carry on my superior genes. I heard ovarian cancer can be hereditary. It would be a disaster if our child inherits it. The sound of Amanda's sobbing could be heard. If you're worried, let's get tested to see if it could be passed on. Just the fact that you have cancer is a huge turnoff. Don't drag me into your illness. You can handle it alone. Damn, I thought I had found a woman with both brains and beauty. You're just defective. I couldn't tolerate a man who didn't even know what the disease was and assumed it was inherited on his own. And the part where he scorned her as defective. What matters now shouldn't be whether his genes survive to the next generation. Isn't her life the most important thing? Even if she wanted children, it is women who bear children. Women risk their lives to give birth. I just couldn't accept that a man who disrespects women was ignoring her like this. Don't you love me anymore? Please don't abandon me. In high school, she was dazzling as she worked towards her goals. I admired her. I was angry at the fact that she was crying and hanging on to such a scumbag. Unable to stand it any longer, I entered the hospital room. Nice to meet you. I'm Dr. Peterson, her primary physician. My sudden entrance seemed to surprise them. I could hear you all the way from outside. You're not family, are you? If you're not, you should leave. My sharp words clearly irritated the man. It's quite disrespectful of you. I've taken time out of my schedule for this woman. Even more reason for you to leave. Her valuable time is being wasted talking to you. If you're not idle, you should be on your way. The man clicked his tongue, shooting Amanda a glare. Is it okay if I leave? If I leave, it's really over between us, okay? His tone seemed to contain a mocking laugh as if he was making a fool out of Amanda, watching her cling and cry. He seemed to find amusement. Amanda cried more, her moist eyes alternated between the man and me. The usually strong-willed Amanda was nowhere to be seen. That frustrated me. Do you need to cling to this kind of man? The Amanda I know wasn't someone who compromised on herself. I heard you studied a lot and got a job at a good company. You worked just as hard in college, didn't you? You're an amazing person. Marriage is supposed to be a lifelong decision, right? You don't deserve someone who neglects your life and talks about your genes and defects. The man shouted things like, "You and you're mocking me," as he listened to my words. Amanda was quietly watching me. Perhaps her words sounded younger than the Amanda I knew. At this moment, Amanda seemed like a lost child. Maybe she was doubting her path due to the harsh words from the guy. Yeah, he's unsuitable. There should be someone else who will appreciate and cherish a hard worker like you. So don't lower yourself to the level of a scumbag like him. Upon hearing my words, Amanda closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, there were no signs of tears. Her eyes now regained their shine as she stared down at the man. We're done. Leave now. Oh, you sure you want to talk to me like that? I might forgive you if you apologize now. The man's earlier bravado was gone, and it was obvious that he was bluffing. He'd initiated the cruel conversation, but now he was unsettled by her desire to break up. I've had enough. We're finished. I'm glad I found out how small-minded you are before our marriage. What was I thinking? How did I not notice until now? I can't stand people who look down on the sick or who see women as mere tools for childbirth. I'm baffled as to what I ever saw in you. Leave right now. The man was speechless, having been chastised by the woman he once looked down upon. I opened the door to the hospital room, gesturing outward with my hand. Then, with a smile, I said, "Please never come back." The man looked frustrated and fled. Back with just the two of us in the hospital room, I asked for her permission and took a seat by the bed. Sorry for eavesdropping and barging in, but that guy, he's an absolute jerk. I couldn't stand it. Eavesdropping isn't a good hobby, but I'll forgive you. He used to have his gentle moments, but he showed his true colors when I felt ill. Yet I was already in love with him, shamefully clinging to him. I wonder if my illness weakened me. Did you refuse surgery for his sake? She nodded slightly. It seemed she thought that if she didn't have her ovaries removed, he would stay by her side. But doing so wouldn't cure her illness. Maybe her mind was also weakened by the illness to the point where she didn't understand that. She laughed self-deprecatingly. Oh, you've seen an embarrassing sight of me. I feel completely exposed. She seemed a bit embarrassed, but it might not be fair that she was the only one whose secret was known. I've also hidden something. Can I share it with you? I felt the need to reveal why I didn't take the college entrance exams. I told her about how my mother felt ill, how critical her condition was, and that I had to postpone my exams for 2 years to take care of her. Once I finished, she hit me gently with her pillow. Why didn't you tell me that? At such a tough time, I accused you of running away, didn't I? That's awful. I didn't want to worry you, so I couldn't say it. I thought getting pity would be painful too. Saying this, she hit me again with her pillow. It didn't hurt at all, but each hit made a comical sound. Why should I be considerate of you, my rival? Why wouldn't I worry about you? I told you to keep up with me, didn't I? I'll go to college first and work hard so you can't catch up. But I still want you to chase me. At her typical words, I couldn't help but laugh. So she wouldn't pity me, huh? It seemed that I had misunderstood her. From there, we were engrossed in stories from our student days. She, who had been crying in front of her boyfriend until just now, was regaining her energy, occasionally showing anger or laughter. This is the way she should be. Her clinging to such a terrible guy is just not like her. So what will you do about the surgery? She looked at me blankly before laughing defiantly. Of course, I'm going to do it. I'll get well quickly and work hard again. I worked hard to get into this company. I'm still going to rise to the top. Her competitive spirit came out in her face, just like her dazzling student days. She's still shining now. The surgery was a success, and the pathology report indicated the cancer could be completely removed with low malignancy and low risk of metastasis. At her request, genetic testing was done, which showed no genetic risk for cancer. Both she and I were relieved. During her hospitalization, we talked every day, and the distance between us seemed to have closed. I enjoyed the time I spent talking to her outside my working hours. Bring me a drink in the afternoon. I'd like something sweet tomorrow. She started making demands, and I found her making these small promises adorable. I'm sure I wasn't the only one who found our talks enjoyable. On the day of her discharge, I had prepared flowers for her. As we were leaving the hospital, I handed her the bouquet. Congratulations on your discharge. She looked at the bouquet, then turned her face away with a pout. Can't you see my hands are full? I can't carry any more. Interpreting her response as a refusal to accept, I felt a bit disheartened. Because I can't carry it, bring it to my house, huh? I was still processing what Amanda had just said and stared at her blankly. What did you just say? That's what I said. Since I can't carry it, you bring the flowers to my house. Well, Amanda, I don't know where your house is. She then placed a piece of paper with something written on it in my pocket. I reached into my pocket and felt the paper. What's written here? I asked. My contact and address. You need to bring flowers. Call me after work. It seemed that Amanda was willing to see me outside the hospital. I clenched the piece of paper in my hand. I was hesitant about whether I could really keep this in my pocket just like this. While thinking about what to do, I looked at Amanda, who was standing in front of me. She was there, her cheeks turning red, her eyes moist as she looked at me. Surely she had made up her mind to be here with me. If that's the case, I'd like to respond to her wishes too. After all, I feel the same way about her. That's why I firmly pushed the paper into the depth of my pocket. Even if you've asked for this back, I won't return it. Hearing my words, she seemed to relax. Perhaps she had been tense as well. I'll probably never forget the joy on her face at that moment for the rest of my life. When I returned to the office and looked at the note, it was written, "Absolutely, you contact me," along with her contact information. I smiled at her characteristic way of making a request. In the evening of that day, after finishing my work, I quickly contacted her and rushed to her house to deliver the bouquet. I hadn't run like that in years. Now, 2 years later, I live with my wife Amanda. We do fight a lot, but my wife, who still looks pretty and cute when she's mad, makes me happy. All in all, I want to continue cherishing my wife with both sweet and cool faces, who never fails to pack me lunch filled with love.
I smoothed my dress and plastered on a smile as I stepped into Ruth's backyard. The baby shower decorations sparkled in the afternoon sun, but my stomach churned with dread. I was late, and I knew Eric would be annoyed. "There you are," Ruth's voice rang out. We were starting to worry. I hugged my daughter, my hand resting on her swollen belly. "Sorry, sweetheart. The salon was crazy today." Ruth's eyes twinkled. "No worries, Mom. There's someone here who's been asking about you." Before I could respond, a familiar voice called out, "Surprise, Annabelle! Guess who's joined us?" I turned, my heart pounding. There stood Bethany, my best friend since college, grinning from ear to ear. But it wasn't her unexpected presence that made my blood run cold. It was the man standing next to her, his arm draped possessively around her waist. Eric, my husband. "Bethany," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. "What a surprise." She rushed forward, enveloping me in a hug. "Oh, Annabelle, it's been too long. I have so much to tell you." I stood frozen as she pulled back, her hand resting on a slight bump beneath her flowing dress. My eyes darted between her and Eric, who avoided my gaze. "Eric and I have some exciting news," Bethany gushed. "We're having a baby." The world tilted on its axis. I gripped the nearby table for support, knocking over a stack of pastel plates. "Mom?" Ruth's concerned voice broke through the fog. "Are you okay?" I forced a smile. "Just a little dizzy. Must be the heat." Eric finally met my eyes, his expression a mix of defiance and guilt. "Annabelle, we need to talk." Not here, I hissed, glancing around at the curious faces of our friends and family. Bethany's smile faltered. Is everything all right? I couldn't bear to look at her. My best friend, the godmother to my children. How long had this been going on? Excuse me, I mumbled, pushing past them and heading for the house. Eric followed me inside, closing the door behind us. Annabelle, I can explain. I whirled on him, fury replacing shock. Explain? Explain how you've been sleeping with my best friend? How you're having a baby with her? He held up his hands. It's not what you think. Bethany doesn't know we're still married. I laughed bitterly. And that makes it better? How long, Eric? How long have you been lying to both of us? He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. It just happened. I ran into her at a conference 6 months ago, and things escalated. 6 months, I repeated, the betrayal cutting deep. While I've been working myself to the bone, trying to save our marriage, you've been. A knock at the door interrupted us. Ruth poked her head in, concern etched on her face. Mom? Dad? Is everything okay? I plastered on another fake smile. Everything's fine, sweetheart. Your father and I just need a moment. Ruth hesitated, her eyes darting between us. Are you sure? You both look upset. Eric stepped forward, his charm sliding back into place. Don't worry, princess. Just a little misunderstanding. We'll be right out. As soon as the door closed, I turned back to Eric. This ends now. You go out there and tell Bethany the truth, or I will. His eyes hardened. You wouldn't dare. Think about what that would do to Ruth's party, to our family. Our family? I scoffed. You gave up the right to talk about our family when you decided to start a new one with my best friend. Eric grabbed my arm, his grip painfully tight. Listen to me, Annabelle. If you say anything, you'll regret it. Think about the scandal, the gossip. Is that what you want? I wrenched my arm free, shock and anger coursing through me. Don't you dare threaten me, Eric. This is far from over. With that, I stormed out of the house, leaving Eric behind. As I stepped back into the sunlight, I locked eyes with Bethany across the yard. Her smile faltered, sensing the tension. In that moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. I couldn't sleep that night, tossing and turning as memories of happier times haunted me. The next morning, I dragged myself to the salon, hoping work would distract me from the mess my life had become. You look like hell, sweetie, Mom said as I stumbled in. Rough night? I nodded, fighting back tears. You have no idea. She studied my face, concern etched in her features. What's going on, Annabelle? Did something happen at Ruth's shower? Before I could answer, the bell chimed. Eric sauntered in, all charm and smiles. Good morning, ladies. Annabelle, can we talk? Mom's eyes darted between us. I'll give you two a moment, she said, retreating to the back room. I crossed my arms, glaring at Eric. What do you want? He leaned close, lowering his voice. I need you to keep quiet about Bethany, just for a little while. Are you kidding me? I hissed. You want me to pretend everything's fine while you play happy families with my best friend? Eric's eyes hardened. Think about Ruth. Do you really want to ruin her pregnancy with all this drama? I faltered, torn between my anger and concern for our daughter. Eric pressed his advantage. Just give me some time to figure things out, for Ruth's sake. Before I could respond, Mom reappeared. Everything okay out here? Eric flashed his winning smile. Just fine, Gwen. I was telling Annabelle about a business trip next week. I'll be gone for a few days. My stomach churned. A few days alone with Bethany, no doubt. As Eric left, Mom turned to me. Honey, what's really going on? I opened my mouth to tell her everything, but Eric's words about Ruth echoed in my mind. It's complicated, I said finally. I'll explain later. The day dragged on, each client reminding me of happier times. Mrs. Johnson gushed about her grandson's wedding, while I wondered if my own marriage had been a sham from the start. As I swept up hair clippings, my phone buzzed. A text from Bethany. Lunch tomorrow? We need to catch up. My hand shook as I replied, agreeing to meet. I had to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. That night, I found myself digging through old photo albums. There we were, Eric, Bethany, and me, arms linked on graduation day. Young, carefree, and impossibly close. A photo slipped out, landing face down on the floor. I picked it up, my breath catching. It was from my wedding day, Eric and I kissing, while Bethany beamed beside us as maid of honor. Anger surged through me. How dare they destroy everything we had? I stormed into our bedroom, where Eric was packing for his business trip. How long? I demanded. He looked up, startled. What? I thrust the wedding photo in his face. How long have you been sleeping with Bethany? Eric's face darkened. I told you, it just happened recently. Why can't you let it go? Let it go, I laughed bitterly. You're having a baby with her. Eric, did our vows mean nothing to you? He slammed his suitcase shut. Oh, please, like you're so innocent. Always working late, never having time for me. What was I supposed to do? I recoiled as if slapped. So this is my fault because I was building a career? Eric's voice dripped with disdain. Pregnancy isn't an excuse to be lazy, Annabelle. Some of us have real jobs to do. Something snapped inside me. I grabbed the nearest object, a framed photo of us, and hurled it at the wall. It shattered, glass flying everywhere. Eric's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed dangerously. He grabbed my arm, fingers digging in painfully. You need to calm down, he growled. I wrenched away, heart pounding. Don't touch me, I spat. Get out, now. For a moment I thought he might refuse. Then, without a word, he grabbed his suitcase and stormed out. As the front door slammed, I sank to the floor, surrounded by broken glass and shattered memories. Tears streamed down my face as the full weight of betrayal crashed over me. But beneath the pain, a spark of determination flickered to life. I wouldn't let Eric destroy me. Somehow I'd find the strength to fight back. Tomorrow's lunch with Bethany loomed large in my mind. One way or another, I'd get to the bottom of this mess and reclaim my dignity in the process. I woke up with a knot in my stomach, dreading my lunch with Bethany. As I got ready, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Call it women's intuition or just paranoia, but I decided to do some digging before meeting her. I rifled through Eric's dresser, searching for any clue that might shed light on his deception. That's when I found them. A pair of pink, wireless headphones tucked beneath his socks. My heart sank. I'd given those to Bethany for her birthday last year. My phone buzzed with a text from Bethany. Can't wait to see you. Lots to catch up on. I typed back a quick reply, postponing our lunch. I needed answers, and I needed them now. When Eric came home that evening, I was waiting. Care to explain these? I asked, dangling the headphones in front of him. His face paled. Where did you get those? Does it matter? They're Bethany's, aren't they? Eric's expression hardened. You've been snooping through my things? I laughed bitterly. That's rich, coming from you. How long has this really been going on, Eric? And don't you dare lie to me again. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. Fine. It's been about a year. Happy now? The room spun. A year. While I'd been working overtime to support our family, he'd been sneaking around with my best friend. Why? I choked out. Why her? Why throw away everything we built? Eric's eyes flashed with anger. Because she doesn't nag me constantly. She doesn't make me feel like a failure every time I come home. I never. Save it, he snapped. You've been so wrapped up in your precious salon, you barely noticed me anymore. Bethany actually listens. She supports me. Rage boiled inside me. And I suppose lying to her about still being married is your way of supporting her? Eric's face darkened. He grabbed my arm, fingers digging in painfully. If you breathe a word of this to Bethany, I swear. I wrenched away, heart pounding. You'll what? Hit me? Go ahead, give me another reason to leave your sorry ass. For a moment, I thought he might actually do it. Then he deflated, sinking onto the bed. This is such a mess, he muttered. You think? I spat. You ruined everything, our marriage, my friendship with Bethany, our family. He looked up sharply. You can't tell Ruth, it would destroy her. I laughed humorlessly. Oh, now you care about our daughter? Where was that concern when you were screwing my best friend? Eric stood, looming over me. I'm warning you, Annabelle, if you keep prying, you'll regret it. Think about Ruth. Think about the scandal. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't the man I married. The Eric I knew would never threaten me. Get out, I whispered. What? Get out, I screamed, shoving him towards the door. I can't even look at you right now. Eric's eyes narrowed. Fine, but this isn't over. We need to figure out how to handle this, discreetly. As soon as he left, I collapsed on the bed, sobs racking my body. How had my life fallen apart so completely? When the tears finally subsided, a steely resolve took their place. I couldn't let Eric control the narrative any longer. It was time to take matters into my own hands. I picked up my phone, fingers hovering over Bethany's number. She deserved to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. But as I was about to call, another text from her popped up. Everything okay? You've seemed off lately. I'm worried about you. My throat tightened. Despite everything, a part of me still cared for Bethany. Could I really shatter her world like this? I set the phone down, mind racing. I needed a plan, one that would expose Eric's lies without destroying everyone I loved in the process. As I stared at the pink headphones on the bed, a dangerous idea began to form. It was risky, maybe even a little crazy. But if it worked, I could finally reclaim control of my life and protect the people I cared about. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I'd set things in motion, and God help Eric when I did. I woke up the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose. No more tears, no more self-pity. It was time to take action. First order of business, document everything. I grabbed my phone and started snapping pictures of Bethany's headphones, Eric's text messages, anything that could prove his infidelity. My hands shook as I worked, but I pressed on. Next, I called my bank. I need to open a separate account, I told the teller, my voice steadier than I felt, one that my husband can't access. As I hung up, a text from Eric flashed across my screen. We need to talk. Coming home early. Panic surged through me. I wasn't ready to face him yet. I needed more time, more evidence. Without thinking, I dialed my dad's number. Honey, his warm voice answered. Everything okay? I broke down, spilling everything, Eric's affair, the baby, his threats. Dad listened silently, then said, Come over, now. I threw some clothes in a bag and raced to my parents' house. Mom and Dad were waiting on the porch, concern etched on their faces. Oh, sweetheart, Mom said, pulling me into a hug. We're here for you. Dad's expression was thunderous. I'll kill him, he growled. No, Dad, I said firmly. I need to handle this myself. We spent the afternoon strategizing. Mom, ever practical, insisted I see a lawyer. You need to protect yourself and your assets, she urged. As evening fell, my phone buzzed incessantly with calls and texts from Eric. I ignored them all. You can't avoid him forever, Dad said gently. What's your plan? I took a deep breath. I'm going to sell the house. Mom gasped. Are you sure? I nodded. It's the only way. I need a fresh start, away from all the memories. The next morning I met with a real estate agent. I need to sell my house urgently, I told her, my voice filled with determination. She looked skeptical. These things take time, Mrs. Thompson, and don't you need your husband's signature? I swallowed hard. He'll sign. Trust me. As I left the agent's office, my phone rang. It was Bethany. My stomach churned as I answered. Annabelle? Her voice was small, uncertain. I really need to talk to you. Can we meet? I closed my eyes, torn between my anger and our years of friendship. Okay, I said finally. Coffee shop on Main, in an hour. Bethany was already there when I arrived, nervously fidgeting with her cup. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. I'm so sorry, she blurted out. I didn't know, I swear I didn't know he was still married. I sat down heavily, the weight of her words sinking in. Tell me everything, I said. As Bethany spoke, painting a picture of Eric's elaborate web of lies, my resolve strengthened. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting Bethany, her unborn child, and my own future. What are you going to do? Bethany asked, her voice trembling. I met her gaze steadily. I'm leaving him, and I think you should too. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I'm so sorry, Annabelle. Can you ever forgive me? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Eric. Where are you? We need to talk now. I showed Bethany the message, watching her face pale. He doesn't know we're together, does he? She whispered. An idea sparked in my mind. Dangerous, perhaps, but potentially game-changing. No, I said slowly, and maybe that's exactly what we need. I turned to Bethany, a plan forming. Are you with me? I asked. Really with me? Because what I'm thinking could change everything. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded firmly. I'm in, whatever it takes. As we bent our heads together, plotting our next move, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. Eric had no idea what was coming, and that was exactly how I wanted it. My hands trembled as I stood on Eric's parents' doorstep, a folder of damning evidence clutched to my chest. I'd known Louise and George for years, but this visit felt like stepping into enemy territory. Louise answered, her face lighting up. Annabelle, dear, what a lovely surprise. I forced a smile. Louise, we need to talk. It's about Eric. Her expression faltered. Is everything all right? No, I said softly. It's not. Inside, I spread the photos across their coffee table, Eric and Bethany together, text messages, bank statements showing suspicious transactions. Louise's hand flew to her mouth while George's face darkened with each revelation. "There's more," I said, my voice shaking. "Bethany's pregnant. Eric's the father." Louise collapsed onto the sofa, her shoulders heaving with silent sobs. George paced the room, muttering under his breath. "How long?" Louise finally asked. "A year at least," I replied. "Maybe longer." George slammed his fist on the table, making us both jump. "I'll kill him," he growled. "My own son, how could he?" I touched his arm gently. "There's something else you should know." I took a deep breath. "Eric's been violent. He threatened me when I confronted him." Louise's head snapped up, her eyes wide with horror. "No," she whispered. "Not my Eric." As if on cue, the front door burst open. Eric strode in, his face contorted with rage. "What the hell is going on here?" For a moment, no one spoke. Then Louise stood, her small frame shaking with fury. "How dare you?" she hissed. "How dare you come into this house after what you've done?" Eric's eyes darted between us, realization dawning. "Annabelle," he snarled, "you had no right." "She had every right," George roared, stepping between us. "You're the one who's destroyed this family, boy." Eric lunged forward, but George caught him by the shirt collar. "Don't you dare," he warned. "You're not the son we raised. You're not our son anymore." Louise's anguished cry pierced the air. "He's right," she sobbed. "I don't know who you are, but you're not my Eric." I watched, stunned, as Eric's world crumbled around him. His parents' rejection seemed to hit him harder than any accusation I could have made. "Mom," he pleaded. "Dad, please, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain," George said coldly. "Get out of our house, now." As Eric turned to leave, his eyes met mine. The hatred I saw there chilled me to the bone. "This isn't over," he hissed. The door slammed behind him, leaving us in stunned silence. Louise crumpled to the floor, her body racked with sobs. I knelt beside her, my own tears falling freely. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I never wanted this to happen." George helped Louise to the couch, then turned to me. "No, Annabelle, we're the ones who should be sorry. We had no idea." Louise grasped my hand. "What can we do? How can we help?" I hesitated, then decided to lay all my cards on the table. "I'm selling the house," I said. "I need to start over, somewhere Eric can't find me." They exchanged a glance, then George nodded firmly. "We'll help. Whatever you need." As we sat there, planning my escape and Eric's comeuppance, I felt a strange mix of grief and relief. I'd lost my husband, but I'd gained unexpected allies. My phone buzzed, a text from Bethany. "Eric's on the warpath. He knows we've been talking. What do we do?" I looked up at Louise and George, their faces etched with concern and determination. In that moment, I knew what I had to do next. "We end this," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Once and for all." I typed a quick reply to Bethany. "Meet me at the house in an hour. Bring everything you have on Eric. It's time to take control." As I hit send, I felt a surge of adrenaline. The stakes had never been higher, but for the first time, I truly believed I could win this fight. My heart raced as I paced the living room, waiting for Bethany to arrive. The house that had once been my sanctuary now felt like a trap, filled with memories of Eric's betrayal. When the doorbell rang, I nearly jumped out of my skin. Bethany stood on the porch, her face pale and drawn. "Annabelle, I'm so sorry," she began, but I cut her off. "Not now. We need to focus." I ushered her inside, glancing nervously at the street. "Did anyone see you come here?" She shook her head. "I don't think so. Annabelle, what's going on? Eric's been calling me nonstop, threatening." "I know," I interrupted. "That's why we need to end this. Today." I laid out my plan, watching Bethany's eyes widen with each detail. When I finished, she sat in stunned silence. "It's risky," she finally said. "It's our only chance," I replied. "Are you with me?" After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. "I'm in." We spent the next hour preparing, gathering evidence and steeling our nerves. As I set up my laptop for the video call, my phone buzzed. A text from Eric. "On my way home, we need to talk." I exchanged a glance with Bethany. "It's time." With trembling fingers, I dialed Eric's number, putting the call on speaker. He answered on the first ring. "Where the hell are you?" he snarled. "I'm at home," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "And I'm not alone." There was a pause. "What do you mean?" "Bethany's here, Eric, and we know everything." I could hear his sharp intake of breath. "Don't do anything stupid, Annabelle. I'm almost there." "Good," I said, "because we have a lot to discuss." I ended the call and turned to Bethany. Ready? She nodded, her face set with determination. Minutes later, we heard Eric's car pull into the driveway. The front door slammed open and he stormed into the living room, his face contorted with rage. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded. I stood my ground. "It's over, Eric. We know about your lies, your manipulation, all of it." His eyes darted between us. "I don't know what you think you know, but—" "Save it," Bethany cut in. "We've compared notes. We know you've been playing us both." Eric's facade cracked. "You don't understand," he pleaded. "I love you both. I never meant to hurt anyone." I laughed bitterly. "Love? Is that what you call this?" I gestured to the bruise on my arm from our last confrontation. Eric's eyes narrowed. "You pushed me," he hissed. "If you had just left well enough alone—" "Enough!" I shouted. "No more excuses, no more lies." I turned to my laptop and hit a button. Suddenly, the faces of Eric's parents appeared on the screen. Eric stumbled back. "Mom? Dad?" "What?" "We've heard everything, son," George said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "How could you do this?" Louise's eyes were filled with tears. "That we raised you better than this, Eric?" As Eric sputtered excuses, I played my final card. "There's more," I said, my voice shaking. "Tell them, Bethany." Bethany stepped forward, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. "I'm pregnant, Eric, and I'm keeping the baby." The room fell silent. Eric's face drained of color as he looked from Bethany to me, then to his parents on the screen. I can explain," he stammered. "There's nothing to explain," I said firmly. "We're done, Eric, all of us." Suddenly, Eric lunged forward, grabbing my arm. "You can't do this to me," he shouted. I wrenched away, fear and adrenaline coursing through me. "Don't touch me." As Eric advanced, his face twisted with rage, Bethany stepped between us. "That's enough," she yelled. "You've deceived both of us, Eric. There's no future for us. Any of us." Eric's parents were shouting from the computer screen, begging him to stop. The room spun around me as the full weight of the situation crashed down. Just as Eric reached for me again, a sharp pain ripped through my abdomen. I gasped, doubling over. "Annabelle?" Bethany's voice sounded far away. "What's wrong?" I looked up, meeting Eric's shocked gaze. "The baby," I whispered. "Something's wrong with the baby." As darkness closed in around me, I heard Bethany calling for an ambulance. The last thing I saw was Eric's face, a mix of anger and fear, before everything went black. The harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital corridor burned my eyes as I was rushed through on a gurney. Pain ripped through my abdomen, each contraction more intense than the last. Bethany ran alongside me, her face a mask of worry. "Hang in there, Annabelle," she urged. "You're going to be okay." I wanted to believe her, but fear gripped my heart. It was too early. The baby wasn't due for weeks. As we burst through the doors of the delivery room, I caught a glimpse of Eric in the waiting area, his face pale and drawn. Our eyes met for a brief moment before the doors swung shut. The next few hours passed in a blur of pain, fear, and frantic medical activity. I heard snatches of conversation, premature labor, fetal distress, emergency C-section, but couldn't focus on anything beyond the next breath, the next push. "We need to get the baby out now," the doctor's voice cut through the haze. "Mrs. Thompson, we're prepping you for surgery." Panic surged through me. "No, please," I gasped. "I want to do this naturally." The doctor's eyes were kind but firm. "I'm sorry, but we don't have a choice. Your baby's life is at risk." As they wheeled me towards the operating room, I saw my parents rushing down the hallway. Mom's eyes were red-rimmed, Dad's jaw set with worry. "We're here, sweetheart," Mom called out. "We love you." The anesthesia took hold, and I drifted into a fitful sleep. When I awoke, the room was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. My body felt heavy, disconnected. "Annabelle?" Bethany's voice came from beside me. "Can you hear me?" I turned my head, wincing at the movement. "The baby?" I croaked. Bethany's eyes filled with tears. "She's in the NICU. She's so tiny, Annabelle, but she's fighting." Relief and fear warred within me. My daughter was alive, but not out of danger. "I want to see her," I said, trying to sit up. "Soon," Bethany promised. "The doctors want you to rest first." As if summoned by our conversation, a nurse entered, followed by Eric. My body tensed instinctively. "What are you doing here?" I hissed. Eric held up his hands. "I just wanted to make sure you and the baby were okay." "We're fine," I snapped. "No thanks to you." The nurse looked between us, sensing the tension. "Mr. Thompson, perhaps you should wait outside." Eric hesitated, then nodded. But before he left, he turned back to me. Annabelle, I know I've made terrible mistakes, but seeing you like this, I realize what really matters. Can we talk, please? For a moment, I was tempted. The familiar pull of our shared history, the dream of what our family could have been, tugged at my heart. But then I remembered the lies, the betrayal, the fear. Our marriage is over, Eric, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. There's no turning back. The only thing that matters now is our daughter. Eric's face crumpled, but I steeled myself against pity. I think you should go, I said quietly. As Eric left, Bethany squeezed my hand. You did it, she whispered. You stood up to him. I nodded, exhausted but determined. It's time to focus on the future, my daughter's future. Just then the doctor entered. Mrs. Thompson, would you like to meet your daughter now? My heart leapt. Yes, please. As they wheeled me to the NICU, I felt a mix of emotions I couldn't quite name. Fear for my tiny, fragile baby, anger at Eric for putting us through this stress, relief that the confrontation was over, and underneath it all, a growing sense of strength. When I saw her for the first time, so small in her incubator, tubes and wires everywhere, I felt my world shift. Nothing else mattered. Not Eric's betrayal, not the drama of the past few months. All that mattered was this tiny fighter, my daughter. I pressed my hand against the incubator, tears streaming down my face. Hello, little one, I whispered. I'm your mom, and I promise, no matter what happens, I'll always be here for you. In that moment, I knew. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever Eric might try to do, I would face them, for her, for us. Our new life was just beginning. 6 months after that harrowing night in the hospital, I stood in the nursery of my new home, cradling my daughter Lily. The soft glow of the nightlight illuminated her peaceful face as I rocked her gently. A quiet knock at the door made me turn. Bethany stood there, her own baby bump now prominently visible. Need any help? She whispered. I shook my head, smiling. We're good. How are you feeling? Like a beached whale, she chuckled softly. But happy. As I laid Lily in her crib, I marveled at how much had changed. The house we now shared was smaller than my old one, but it was filled with more love and laughter than I'd known in years. We made our way to the living room, where the remnants of our housewarming party still lingered. My parents had insisted on throwing it, a celebration of new beginnings. I still can't believe we're doing this, Bethany said, sinking onto the couch. If someone had told me a year ago that we'd be living together, raising our kids. I know, I agreed. It's not exactly how I pictured my life turning out, but honestly, I wouldn't change it for the world. The sound of a car pulling up made us both tense. We exchanged a glance, knowing who it must be. I'll get it, I said, squaring my shoulders. Eric stood on the porch, looking uncomfortable. I'm here to drop off the last of the divorce papers, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. I took the envelope, feeling a mix of emotions. Anger, yes, but also a strange sense of pity. Eric looked lost, diminished somehow. How's Lily? He asked hesitantly. She's perfect, I replied, growing stronger every day. He nodded, then glanced past me to where Bethany stood in the doorway, his face twisted with regret. I'm sorry, he said softly. To both of you. I know it doesn't change anything, but I truly am sorry. For a moment, I was tempted to slam the door in his face, but then I thought of Lily, of the future I wanted for her. A future free from bitterness and resentment. Thank you for saying that, I said finally. I hope you find peace, Eric, and I hope you'll be a good father to Lily, even if we can't be together. He nodded, blinking back tears. I'll try. I promise I'll try. As Eric drove away, Bethany came to stand beside me. You okay? She asked, putting an arm around my shoulders. I took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift that I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. Yeah, I said. I really am. We went back inside, where I carefully placed the divorce papers on the coffee table. They represented the end of one chapter, but the beginning of so many more. You know, Bethany said thoughtfully, a year ago, I thought I'd lost everything. My relationship, my best friend, my future. But now we're building something even better, I finished for her. She smiled, her eyes shining. Together, we can build a better life for our kids, for ourselves. As if on cue, Lily's cry echoed from the nursery. I stood up, ready to go to her, but Bethany waved me off. I've got this, she said. You rest. Watching her waddle down the hall, I felt a surge of affection and gratitude. We'd been through hell, Bethany and I, but we'd come out stronger. We'd created a family of our own choosing, built on trust, understanding, and shared experiences. I picked up a framed photo from the side table, Lily and me in the hospital, surrounded by my parents, Bethany, and even Eric's parents. Louise and George had become unexpected allies, doting grandparents determined to make up for their son's mistakes. The future wasn't perfect or certain. There would be challenges ahead. Co-parenting with Eric, helping Bethany through her pregnancy, juggling work and motherhood. But for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to face whatever came our way. As Bethany's soft lullaby drifted from the nursery, I closed my eyes and smiled. This was home, this was family, and together we were unbreakable.
When I opened the freezer at -4 degrees F, I cried out. There was my daughter, 6 months old, that I had given to my husband. I quickly swooped her up and touched her cheek. She seemed chilly, and I could not hear her son. I fell down right then and there. Why is it now at this point? When I called my husband, he casually said our daughter was still doing okay. Lies. I made the decision to look into the man who had duped me and let our child suffer from this. What I found was unbelievable. I was so angry that I was determined to make my spouse suffer. Olivia is my name. I was a client and a restaurant owner when I met my husband, Michael, who is 5 years older than me. One of my regular hangouts with coworkers was the restaurant next to the publishing business where I work. Michael was constantly working hard in the restaurant, and I found myself appreciating that. We were reunited by fate, and our romance took off. When I was 34, we tied the knot and began our new life together in the restaurant's upstairs apartment. Not long after I moved in, I found out I was expecting. The look of excitement on Michael's face was priceless. Olivia, is that accurate? You succeeded. I will at last become a father. We shared ultrasound pictures from every checkup, looking forward to the day we would finally meet our child. I gave birth to our daughter, Mia, at the last minute after working virtually nonstop. We had a wonderful husband and a cute child, and even with the difficulties of being first-time parents, our lives was full of happiness. Since the birth of our child, Michael's work schedule has expanded, and during my maternity leave, I have handled the majority of household tasks and childcare. Though I knew there was nothing I could do about it, I was concerned for his welfare. Aren't you getting enough sleep? I inquired. In reply, he said, well, I'm managing somehow. At least he didn't have to commute. Our house was on the first floor of the eatery. He would leave every day for meetings, returning late at night, as there were plans for a new shop during this time. After closing his own business, he also went to other restaurants with staff members to brainstorm new menu items. He'd sleep until the very last minute before getting ready, so mornings were a blur. Unfortunately, he didn't have much time for Maya because of his hectic schedule. Hey, would you accompany me tomorrow on your day off to buy some children's clothes? No way. I'm worn out. On the day the store closes, is it not possible for me to sleep? My spouse appeared to be depressed due to his work-related exhaustion. He cried, enough, as our daughter fussed awake in the middle of the night, put an end to her wailing. In addition, he flung nearby things at us out of fury. Maya is still a baby. It can't be helped. I attempted to reason with him, but he wouldn't listen. After a while, he said, enough already. I'll spend the night at the store. He stormed out of the house after saying those things. I kept telling myself maybe Michael wouldn't feel the same way until circumstances with the new shop calmed down. Nevertheless, nothing appeared to have changed by the time our baby became 3 months old. My closest friend wanted me to attend her wedding, which was taking place in 3 months at a resort in the United States, according to a message I received at that time. I told her it to be challenging, but she persisted and even asked me to give a speech. I reasoned that it would be impossible to leave Mia with Michael. It would be a problem for my folks to travel here because they lived far away. Michael's aging parents were nearby, but I was hesitant to ask them to look after our infant. I'd love to see the bride and celebrate. I sighed as I looked at the invitation. Just then, my husband approached, glancing at what was in my hands. "A friend's wedding?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied. "It's in 3 months, but with Mia, I'm considering declining." "Go ahead and attend," he said. I was taken aback. "What do you mean?" I asked. He replied, "The wedding. Since I'll take a break from the shop and take care of Mia, you should go." His unexpected suggestion left me speechless, and I couldn't respond immediately. "Are you sure?" Even though it's a resort location within the U.S., it's quite far, and if something happens, I won't be able to return quickly because of the flight. I expressed my concerns, but he reassured me. "It's okay. Take a break once in a while." Thank you. I had honest concerns about my husband, who hadn't been involved in taking care of our daughter much since she was born. Could he handle it alone for several days? However, I didn't want to dampen his enthusiasm, so I swallowed my words and asked him to do it. Over the next 3 months, I carefully taught Michael how to take care of Mia, considering his schedule. On the day I departed for my friend's wedding, I said, "Take care." Yeah. Leave it to me. Have a great time." I entrusted our daughter to him and left home as planned. However, upon arriving at the airport, an announcement informed me that the flight was canceled due to sudden bad weather. I contacted my friend to apologize for the last-minute cancellation. As I tried to call Michael to explain, there was no answer. Is he struggling with taking care of Mia? I wondered. Imagining that scene made me feel somewhat amused. I decided not to bother sending an email, assuming he wouldn't have time to read it, and returned home. When I arrived home, drenched in the sideways rain, neither my husband nor our daughter was in the living room or the bedroom. Yet, considering the stormy weather, it seemed unlikely they had gone out since it was the shop's scheduled day off. I ventured downstairs just to be sure. The atmosphere there was eerily quiet, and I couldn't sense anyone's presence. However, the light in the pantry, where he kept the freezer and other supplies, was on. Did someone forget to turn it off? As I stepped into the room, I noticed that the freezer door was slightly ajar, allowing cold air to escape. Concerned about the perishable items inside, I decided to check. When I opened the door, I screamed. I was met with a chilling sight. Our 6-month-old daughter, Mia, placed in a basket and stored in the freezer at a bone-chilling -4 degrees F. I immediately pulled her out and held her close. Mia, stay with me." Her face was icy, and she made no sound. Despair washed over me as I cradled her, but I knew I had to act quickly. I called an ambulance, and as they rushed me out to the emergency room, I silently prayed for her safety. Why did this happen? Where on earth is Michael? I called my husband repeatedly, but each time it went straight to voicemail without connecting. Frustrated, I decided to test the waters by sending him an email, intentionally asking about our daughter's well-being. To my surprise, I received a message saying, "Mia is happily playing. Enjoy the wedding." Yet at that very moment, our daughter was still receiving medical treatment behind that door. Liar. The rage I felt toward Michael was boiling inside me. It was then that I resolved to seek thorough revenge against him and took action. 3 days later, my husband returned home. Instead of heading for our house, he went straight to the shop. I watched his actions through the baby monitor camera I had installed in the shop from our upstairs residence. Without hesitation, he walked toward the room where the freezer was located. Through the camera, he seemed somewhat frantic. "Whoa!" His scream echoed all the way to the second floor. I quietly followed him downstairs and stood behind him. He muttered something almost like a chant. "Why are you shouting so loudly? I can hear you all the way upstairs." Startled, he turned around when he noticed my presence. "Ha! Why?" he stammered. "Maya would be frightened." "Was she behaving well?" I asked, noticing our daughter's clothes behind him. As I leaned in to see Mia's face, Michael used his entire body to block me. "I want to hold her quickly, so could you move aside?" he stammered. "No, she's sleeping now. It's better to leave her alone." But I couldn't wait, even just for her sleeping face. "Ah!" I screamed, and Michael awkwardly averted his eyes. "What's going on? Where's Maya?" I demanded. He hesitated. "Well, you see, it was no wonder the bass in the freezer should have contained our daughter, but instead, there was a baby doll dressed in Mia's clothes. Of course, it was all my doing, a carefully orchestrated performance. Please bear with this exchange a little longer. This was just her plaything." "Really? So where's Maya?" She's being looked after." "Yes, she's temporarily with someone else." Michael piled on the lies, desperately trying to salvage the situation. Then he looked at me, realization dawning on his face. "Why are you here? Wasn't your return scheduled for the evening? If I returned home early, would it cause any problems?" "No, it's not like that. In reality, when I decided to take revenge on Michael, I had sent him an email. It stated that I would continue entrusting our daughter to him and that I would return home 3 days later in the evening. That email was a lie. On that day, the flight was canceled due to bad weather, so I couldn't go. That's why I immediately returned home." "Huh? I didn't hear anything about that. Why didn't you contact me sooner?" "But it wasn't you who didn't answer. Even so, I also miss calls sometimes." Michael, who had been assertive until then, grew increasingly timid. Toward the end, he mumbled so softly that I could barely hear him. However, whether he answered the phone at that moment no longer mattered. My anger wasn't about such trivial matters. Claiming that you left Mia with someone else was a lie, right? After all, when I returned home, you weren't here, and our daughter was in the freezer. Did you know? And yet you even used such a doll to play a disgusting prank." Michael retorted, growing defensive as he approached me, but I stood my ground. "Who's the real lowest of the low? When I asked you about Maya's well-being in that email, you said she was happily playing." Michael's face twisted in frustration, and yet at that moment, she was already at the hospital. "You liar. What were you doing?" Tears welled up as I confronted him, but he avoided eye contact, turning away in silence. "Say something," I declared, thrusting a piece of paper in front of my husband's nose. "Huh. You were out here, weren't you?" The paper was a schedule for a trip. "Well, it's because we suddenly had a meeting for the new shop at the hotel. ACAM. But the reservation was made 3 months ago, right after I decided to attend my friend's wedding. As I checked the date, it aligned with the moment I committed to the wedding." Michael seemed to panic again, avoiding eye contact and falling silent. "Moreover, you reserved a couple's plan at the hotel." "Huh. I wasn't invited. It was something I saw on TV, a popular option. I thought it might benefit our shop, so I went for research." His feeble excuses only increased my suspicion. A faint sheen of sweat appeared on his forehead. Well, so you took your employees along? Yeah, like a company trip. I inwardly sighed at Michael's ever-changing explanations, but now it was showtime. I couldn't afford to drag out this exchange any longer. What part of this is a business trip? I confronted him, presenting several photos. They showed my husband posing happily with another woman at tourist spots and getting cozy in bathrobes at the hotel. Clearly, it wasn't a work-related trip. They looked like a couple on vacation. Michael pulled out his phone, glancing between the photos I'd handed him and his screen, looking flustered. How did you get these pictures? He demanded, showing me his phone. To his surprise, the same images I printed were displayed there. I smirked at him. Did you forget that your phone's contents are accessible from a computer? Michael's face fell as he remembered. You see, he'd previously helped create greeting cards for a customer using his phone data, including addresses. He'd linked his phone and computer, allowing me to access reservation details and even the photos sent by his affair partner from the tourist spots. Moreover, isn't she one of your employees? No wonder you confidently called it a company trip. Michael's affair partner was indeed a 28-year-old woman named Sofia who worked at his restaurant. To think I was being cheated on right under my nose. Honestly, it's quite shocking. It's hard to see what is under your nose. Michael tried to deflect with a joke, but there was no sign of remorse. I had no lingering feelings for a man like him. I can't forgive what you did to Mia, more than your infidelity, I declared. Well, if you've already found out, there's no helping it, Michael retorted, wearing a defiant smile. I wanted to be with Sofia, and I planned to divorce you. As for child support, well, that's another matter. Paying for Maya is a bit much. He seemed reluctant to spend unnecessarily on child support. That's when he saw me agonizing over attending my friend's wedding. Michael had an idea. If he got rid of the daughter, all problems would vanish. So that day, he locked Mia in the freezer and set off confidently on his affair trip. His plan was to handle it before I returned home and find a clever excuse for her death. Well, it's all ruined because of you. I felt nothing but disgust as he grinned. So where's Maya? When's the funeral? What are you talking about? I'm asking about her. What happened to her? Michael's frustration was evident in his tone. Maya is fine right now. My mom is with her at the hospital. What? Is she alive? He looked visibly disappointed. I had discovered Mia shortly after Michael left the house. Her face was cold, and she wasn't crying. I had braced myself for the worst, but while waiting for the ambulance, Mia opened her eyes, yawned, and cried loudly. It seemed she had slept soundly even in that situation. The hospital conducted thorough tests, but there were no abnormalities, considering her young age, just 6 months. They decided on a slightly longer hospital stay. The freezer had been slightly ajar, and I found her soon after Michael's departure. Mia's survival was a combination of luck, her age, the short time she was inside, and the fortunate circumstances. While I can say this now that she's safe, I'm still amazed by Mia's resilience, how she could sleep soundly anywhere undisturbed. I'll report this incident to the police, I declared. Huh? Why? She's safe now, so what's the problem? Upon hearing the word police, his eyes widened, and he looked flustered. That's not the issue. What you did could have cost our child's life. If things had gone wrong, damn it, why didn't the plane fly? If you had attended the wedding, my plan would have been foolproof. He defiantly paced around me, spitting as he spoke. It seemed he lacked any awareness of his wrongdoing. To make him acknowledge his guilt, I planned to involve the police and seek severe consequences. But first, I had another way to teach him a lesson regarding this matter. I'll have it written up in the magazine. The reputation of this shop will take a nosedive. Wait a minute. That's unfair. It's an abuse of authority. Michael stopped in his tracks and grabbed my shoulder, but I shook off his hand with all my strength. All I'm doing is my job. I used to work for a publishing company that was in charge of the magazine department. Perhaps you forgot. I used to go to my husband's restaurant, which was excellent, but not very well known, before we were married. As a result, I included it in an article for the E-Reporter's Hidden Gem Restaurants area, and it soon flourished. That's how I gained Michael's appreciation and finally started dating and got married to him. My spouse is quite nervous because he is aware of the consequences of being published in a magazine. I even have plans for a new branch, but I've come this far. Our sales are going to be horribly affected by a review like that, and I will be completely untrustworthy. Our way of life will suffer if that occurs, but I'm not aware of it. Mia, and you will be just as impacted, won't you? He kept trying to convince me, pleading with me. Hold on. I take it that you wanted to be with your partner in the affair and were intending to file for divorce from me. Then, it makes no difference what occurs to us. That, well, is the circumstances. Thus, the documentation is ready. Sign it right now. In addition, I'll be requesting child support and alimony. I waved the divorce decree in my spouse's face. He grabbed them from me and fixed his intense gaze on them. At last acknowledging the truth, Michael abruptly started apologizing. I apologize. Please pardon me. Please keep this from the police. And I want you to think again about getting a divorce. He was so pathetic that even as he cried out in desperation, I couldn't help but think of my husband. We don't need the cops if an apology suffices. Live with your regrets and move on. I pulled him away with a forceful tone, and Michael fell to the ground sobbing. After that, my spouse and I formalized our divorce. I asked that he and his lover pay me a total of $20,000 for his affair. We also decided that he would pay our daughter's child support in full, at an amount of $63,000. My husband set up this incident out of fear of needless spending, knowing full well the severe repercussions he would face. Michael was questioned and the police were notified. He was then taken into custody and given a jail sentence. This episode was widely publicized in publications and made headlines in the news, even without my publishing an article. In addition, our daughter's freezer-keeping experience sparked a barrage of negative comments on social media, where I had posted details about the restaurant. The restaurant closed down quickly as a result of its sharp decline in reputation. My spouse had to pay for his acts because he had nowhere to go back to. Conversely, I began a new life with my kid. Michael had never had any parental responsibilities. Thus, his absence had no effect. Mia is having a happy childhood, and I'm going to keep trying to make her smile. How did you come upon this tale? Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. Till then, enjoy our upcoming video.
I never thought my life would implode because of a plain brown envelope. But there it was, sitting innocently on my doorstep when I got home from dropping Oliver at daycare. No return address, just my name, Harper Quinn, typed neatly on the front. I almost tossed it in with the junk mail. My hands were full of grocery bags, and I was already running late for a client consultation. But something about that envelope nagged at me. Maybe it was how precisely my name was centered, or how the paper felt expensive between my fingers. Inside were photos. At first, they didn't make sense, just random shots of downtown Seattle. Then I saw him. My husband Caleb, walking into the Fairmont Olympic Hotel. Another shot showed him at their bar, leaning close to a woman with long dark hair. The final photo punched the air from my lungs, Caleb kissing her in the elevator, his hands tangled in that same dark hair. The timestamp showed these were taken just 3 days ago, when he'd told me he was pulling an all-nighter at the office for a product launch. My phone buzzed. A text from Caleb, running late tonight. Big presentation tomorrow. Don't wait up. I stared at his message until the screen went dark. The lies felt different now, weighted with proof I couldn't unsee. 2 years of marriage, a beautiful son. And countless late nights at the office started realigning themselves in my mind like puzzle pieces, finally showing the real picture. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Lily, still on for coffee tomorrow? You've been MIA lately. I hadn't told anyone about my suspicions. How Caleb's shirts sometimes smelled of unfamiliar perfume. How he'd started keeping his phone face down and taking calls in another room. I'd buried those doubts beneath the routine of caring for Oliver and managing my freelance makeup clients. It was easier to pretend everything was fine. But now, I laid the photos on our kitchen counter, the one Caleb had insisted on upgrading to marble last year. Everything in our house suddenly felt like a prop in some elaborate performance. The family photos on the walls. The matching coffee mugs in the cabinet. Even Oliver's artwork on the fridge seemed to mock me with its bright, innocent colors. My hands shook as I texted Lily back, "Actually, can you come over tonight? Need to talk." Then I called my afternoon client and rescheduled. I couldn't possibly focus on making someone else look beautiful when my own life was crumbling. I spent the next hour going through Caleb's things, looking for what? More evidence? Some explanation that would make this all make sense? In his closet, I found receipts for restaurants I'd never been to, tucked into jacket pockets. A small jewelry box from Tiffany's hidden behind his winter sweaters, definitely not something I'd ever received. The front door opened at exactly 6:15 p.m., right on schedule. "Honey? Why's your car still here?" Caleb's voice carried upstairs, confused but not worried. "Not yet." I looked at myself in our bedroom mirror, smoothing my hair and straightening my shoulders. The woman staring back at me wasn't the same person who'd walked through that door with groceries this morning. That Harper had been naive, trusting. This Harper had evidence scattered across her marriage bed and rage simmering beneath her skin. "Up here," I called out, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "We need to talk about your late nights at the office." His footsteps paused on the stairs. In that moment of silence, I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, crafting explanations and excuses. But I had photos that told the truth, and soon he'd realize that his carefully constructed double life was about to come crashing down. I picked up the envelope and waited for my husband to walk into a conversation that would change everything. The dinner table felt like a minefield. My mother kept glancing at Caleb's empty chair while Dad pushed his pot roast around his plate. Oliver, blissfully unaware of the tension, happily smeared mashed potatoes across his face. Another late meeting? Mom's voice carried that edge I'd grown to hate, the one that said "I told you so" without actually saying it. Product launch, I replied automatically, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. It had been 3 days since I'd found the photos, and I still hadn't confronted Caleb. Each night, he'd come home with perfectly crafted excuses and gentle kisses that felt like betrayal. "You know, Harper," Dad set down his fork, "when your mother and I were starting out." "James," Mom warned, but he continued. "No, Margaret, she needs to hear this. When we were young, I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. But I never missed Sunday dinner. Not once." I focused on wiping Oliver's face, grateful for the distraction. Caleb's company is different. Tech startups are demanding. Too demanding to see his son? Mom's question hung in the air like smoke. My phone buzzed. A text from Caleb, "Sorry, babe. Meeting running long. Tell your parents I'm sorry to miss dinner. Kiss Oliver goodnight for me." I showed them the message, watching their expressions darken. The same expressions they'd worn when I'd announced my engagement to Caleb 3 years ago. They'd never said it outright, but they'd seen something in him that I'd been too in love to notice. "I should get Oliver home for bed," I said, standing up. "It's past his bedtime." Mom followed me to the door while Dad got Oliver ready. "Sweetheart, is everything okay? You seem different lately." For a moment, I almost told her everything. About the photos, the lies, the nights I lay awake listening to Caleb shower as soon as he got home, washing away evidence of where he'd been. But telling her would make it real, and I wasn't ready for that yet. "I'm fine, Mom. Just tired." She hugged me tight, and I had to fight back tears. "You know you can always come home, right? You and Oliver both." The drive home was quiet except for Oliver's soft snoring from the backseat. I took the long way, passing by Caleb's office building. His car wasn't in its usual spot, but I hadn't expected it to be. I wondered if he was with her right now, in some expensive hotel room, while I drove our son home alone. When I pulled into our driveway, I noticed a woman standing near our front door. For a wild moment, I thought it might be her, the dark-haired woman from the photos. But as I got closer, I recognized Lily's familiar silhouette. "Surprise," she called out softly, noticing Oliver asleep in my arms. "I brought wine and that terrible reality TV show you love." Inside, after putting Oliver to bed, Lily poured us each a generous glass of red. "Okay, spill. You've been avoiding me for days, and you look like hell." I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the photos I'd saved. "Someone sent these to me." Lily's sharp intake of breath said everything. She flipped through them slowly, her expression hardening with each swipe. "That son of a bitch." "I don't know what to do," I admitted, the words finally breaking free. "I haven't confronted him yet. I keep waiting for." "I don't know what I'm waiting for." "You're waiting for it not to be true," Lily said gently. "But Harper, you need to." The front door opened, and Caleb's voice called out, "Honey? Why are all the lights still on?" Lily and I froze, staring at each other. My phone, with the damning photos still displayed, sat between us on the coffee table. Footsteps approached the living room, and I had to decide, face him now, with Lily as my witness, or continue pretending everything was fine. I reached for my phone just as Caleb walked in, but I wasn't quite fast enough. His eyes caught the image on the screen, and for just a moment, his carefully maintained facade cracked. After Caleb's hasty retreat from the living room that night, I couldn't sleep. His laptop sat on his desk, taunting me. He never logged out, why would he? We'd always trusted each other. Or at least, I'd trusted him. The clock read 3:17 a.m. when I finally sat at his desk. His password was still Oliver's birthday. Some things hadn't changed, even if everything else had. I didn't know what I was looking for until I found it, a second email account hidden in his browser history. The username made my stomach turn, cfoster.private@gmail.com. Real creative, Caleb. The inbox loaded, and there she was. Vanessa Reed. Dozens of emails, stretching back months. My hands shook as I clicked the first one. Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. When can I see you again? Date stamped 3 days after Oliver's second birthday party. I kept reading, each message worse than the last. Lunch meetings that turned into hotel afternoons. Weekend business trips that were actually romantic getaways. Plans, promises, declarations of love, all while I was at home, raising our son, believing his lies about late nights at the office. Harper? I jumped. Caleb stood in the doorway, his hair messy from sleep. For a moment, he looked like the man I'd fallen in love with, vulnerable, real. Then his eyes fell on the laptop screen. "I can explain," he started. "Explain what?" My voice sounded strange, distant. "How you've been sleeping with your coworker since our son turned 2. Or how you took her to Paris last month when you said you were at a tech conference." He stepped forward. "It's not what you think." "Really?" I turned the screen toward him. "Because I think it's exactly what these emails show. You and Vanessa planning your little rendezvous while I'm at home, being the perfect wife, the devoted mother." "Lower your voice," he hissed. "You'll wake Oliver." "Oh, now you care about Oliver?" The laugh that escaped me didn't sound like my own. "Where was that concern when you were missing his doctor's appointments for your afternoon hookups?" His face changed then, hardening into something I didn't recognize. "You want to know the truth?" "Fine. Yes, I'm seeing Vanessa. Yes, it's been going on for months. Because with her, I don't have to pretend to be perfect all the time. She doesn't look at me with disappointment when I work late or miss a family dinner. No, she just looks at you naked in hotel rooms while your wife and child wait at home." He flinched. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I stood up so quickly the chair crashed backward. "You want to talk about fair? I'm going to show you fair." I grabbed my phone and started forwarding the emails to myself. Caleb lunged for the laptop, but I blocked him. "Don't," he warned. "Think about what you're doing. Think about Oliver." I am thinking about Oliver. I'm thinking about how I'm going to explain to our son why his father is a lying, cheating. A cry from down the hall cut me off. Oliver, awakened by our fighting. We both froze, the sound of our son's distress cutting through the tension like a knife. "I'll get him," Caleb said, moving toward the door. "No." I stepped in front of him. "You don't get to comfort him." "Not anymore." As I walked to Oliver's room, I heard Caleb call after me, "Harper, please. We can work this out. I'll end it with Vanessa. I'll do whatever you want." I picked up our crying son, holding him close, breathing in his innocent scent. "It's okay, baby," I whispered. "Mommy's here." Over Oliver's shoulder, I watched Caleb hovering in the doorway, his face a mask of regret and desperation. But all I could see were those emails, those lies, those betrayals playing on repeat in my mind. "Pack a bag," I said quietly, still rocking Oliver. "I want you gone before we wake up." "Harper." "And Caleb?" I met his eyes, letting him see all the hurt and anger I'd been holding back. "Tell Vanessa she can have you. I'm done." Oliver's sobs quieted to hiccups as Caleb's footsteps retreated down the hall. In the darkness of the nursery, I made a silent promise to my son. This wasn't the end of our story, it was just the beginning of a new one. The divorce papers sat untouched on my kitchen counter for 3 days. My lawyer said they were straightforward: a clean break, joint custody of Oliver, division of assets. Simple. Except nothing about destroying a family is simple. Caleb called again, his 4th attempt today. I let it go to voicemail, like all the others. Instead, I focused on Oliver playing with his blocks on the floor, building towers just to knock them down. Each crash made him giggle, completely unaware that his world was falling apart too. The doorbell rang. I checked my phone, no scheduled visits, no deliveries. Through the peephole, I saw Caleb, looking more disheveled than I'd ever seen him. "Harper, please," he called through the door. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I glanced at Oliver, still absorbed in his blocks. "Stay right there, baby," I whispered, stepping onto the porch and closing the door behind me. Caleb looked terrible. His usual pressed shirts and perfect hair replaced by wrinkled clothes and dark circles under his eyes. You're not answering my calls. I'm busy keeping our son's life as normal as possible. I miss him. I miss you both. He reached for my hand, but I stepped back. We can fix this. I ended things with Vanessa. Completely. I even requested a transfer to a different department. Did you tell her about Paris? The words came out sharp, cutting. About the apartment you were planning to buy there? I saw the real estate emails, Caleb. You weren't just having an affair, you were building a whole other life. His face paled. Those were just fantasies. I never meant to get caught? I laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. You know what the worst part is? I keep thinking about all those nights I apologized to Oliver for you missing bedtime. All those times I defended you to my parents. I made excuses for you while you were planning your escape. It wasn't like that. He ran his hands through his hair, a nervous gesture I used to find endearing. I was lost, Harper. The pressure at work, trying to be the perfect husband and father. I cracked. Vanessa was just convenient? A mistake. His voice cracked. The biggest mistake of my life. But we have history, Harper. We have Oliver. We can get through this. A car pulled into our driveway, Vanessa's sleek BMW. My heart stopped as she stepped out, designer handbag clutched like armor. What is she doing here? I hissed at Caleb. I don't know. He looked genuinely shocked. I swear, Harper, I didn't. Save it. I turned to face Vanessa as she approached, her confidence faltering slightly when she saw my expression. Harper, she started, I know this is inappropriate, but we need to talk. All of us. About what? How you and my husband planned your perfect Parisian life while I changed diapers. No, about, she opened her bag, pulling out an envelope. About this. Inside were more photos, dozens of them. But these weren't of Caleb and Vanessa. They were of Caleb with other women. Different hotels, different cities, different dates. Some from before Vanessa, some after. He's been lying to both of us, Vanessa said quietly. I found these on his work laptop yesterday. There are others. I stared at the photos, each one a fresh betrayal. All those business trips, all those late nights. My hands started shaking. Harper, Caleb stepped toward me, I can explain. The sound of Oliver's laughter drifted through the front door, innocent and pure. Something inside me hardened. No, I said, my voice steady. No more explanations. No more lies. I turned to Vanessa. Thank you for showing me these. You can keep him. Harper, please, Caleb reached for me again. The papers are inside. Sign them by Friday, or I'll make sure every woman you've ever deceived gets their day in court. I opened the front door. And Caleb? Oliver's birthday party is next weekend. Don't come. I walked inside, leaving them both on the porch, and sat down next to my son. He immediately handed me a block, smiling his father's smile. Build, Mommy, he said simply. So I did, helping him create something new from the pieces of our broken world. The fashion show prep room buzzed with nervous energy. Models rushed between makeup stations while designers made last-minute adjustments. This was my first major event since the separation, and my hands trembled slightly as I applied eyeliner to a willowy blonde. Harper? My client list coordinator appeared, tablet in hand. There's been a change. The lead designer wants you to do Vanessa Reed's makeup. She's closing the show. The eyeliner pencil snapped in my grip. I don't work with homewreckers, I said quietly, keeping my voice steady despite the surge of anger. She specifically requested you. Said you're the best in Seattle. He paused, checking his tablet. It would mean a lot of exposure. She's being featured in Vogue next month. Of course she was. Vanessa always landed on her feet, even after our confrontation. The photos she'd revealed about Caleb's other affairs had done nothing to diminish her own role in destroying my marriage. Fine, I said, surprising myself. Send her over. Vanessa appeared minutes later, wearing a silk robe and an uncertain expression. Harper, Sit. I gestured to the chair, already reaching for my brushes. And don't talk. I need to concentrate. She complied, and I began working. Each stroke of the brush was precise, professional. I could make her beautiful, or I could make her look like a circus clown. The power was intoxicating. I left him, she said suddenly, breaking our tense silence. After those photos. I couldn't trust anything he said. My hand stilled. I'm not your therapist. No, but you're the only one who understands. She met my eyes in the mirror. He's seeing someone new already. Did you know? I didn't, and the knowledge hit harder than expected. My brushstrokes became slightly more aggressive. Some junior executive at his company. 25, fresh out of business school. Vanessa winced as I applied the eyeliner with perhaps too much force. He has a type, doesn't he? Women who admire him, look up to him. Until they realize it's all an act. Stop talking. My voice cracked slightly. Just. Stop. Harper? Lily appeared behind me, concern etched on her face. She'd been helping coordinate the show's logistics. Everything okay here? Fine, I said, adding the final touches to Vanessa's makeup. We're done. You're perfect. Go destroy someone else's life. Vanessa stood, her expression complicated. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not just about Caleb. About everything. As she walked away, Lily grabbed my arm. What was that about? And why didn't you tell me she'd be here? I didn't know. I started packing up my supplies, hands shaking. Did you know about Caleb's new girlfriend? Harper. Did you? Lily's silence was answer enough. I pushed past her, needing air, needing space. In the hallway, I bumped into someone, the lead designer. Harper Quinn? Perfect timing. I wanted to discuss using you for our Paris Fashion Week team next month. Paris. Where Caleb and Vanessa had planned their future. Where he was probably taking his new girlfriend now. I need a minute. I rushed toward the exit, ignoring the calls behind me. Outside, the Seattle rain matched my mood. My phone buzzed, a text from my mom, Oliver's having a great time. Don't worry about rushing back. Another buzz. Caleb, can we talk about adjusting the custody schedule? Sarah would like to meet Oliver. Sarah. The new girlfriend had a name. I stared at my reflection in a rain puddle, mascara running down my cheeks. The woman looking back at me seemed foreign, broken, lost. But something else flickered in those eyes. Determination. Rage. Power. My phone buzzed again. The lead designer, Paris offer stands. All expenses paid, 3-week contract. Need answer tonight. I thought about Caleb and his parade of women. About Vanessa and her perfectly made-up face. About Oliver, who deserved a mother he could be proud of. Walking back inside, I found the lead designer. About Paris, I said, my voice stronger than I'd felt in months. I'm in. But I have one condition, I want to do Vanessa's makeup for the entire show. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destruction. It's about rising above, shining brighter, and showing them exactly what they lost. Paris in December wasn't the romantic dream I'd imagined. Rain pelted the hotel windows as I unpacked my makeup supplies, trying to focus on tomorrow's show. 3 weeks of working alongside Vanessa, my own personal version of hell, dressed up as career advancement. My phone lit up with a video call from home. Oliver's face filled the screen, chocolate smeared across his cheeks. "Mommy! Look what Sarah made." Sarah. Of course she was there during Caleb's custody time. My stomach clenched as the camera panned to show elaborate Christmas cookies spread across my former kitchen counter. My kitchen. Where that woman now played happy families with my son. "They're beautiful, baby," I managed. "Are you being good for Daddy?" "Sarah's teaching me to decorate." His innocent excitement felt like needles in my heart. "When are you coming home?" "Soon, sweetheart. Just 2 more." The call dropped. Typical Paris hotel Wi-Fi. I tried reconnecting, but messages started flooding in instead. "Caleb, Oliver's asking for you. Maybe you should reconsider this Paris thing." "Mom, he needs stability right now, not a globetrotting mother." "Lily, call me ASAP. Caleb's filing for primary custody." The room spun. I grabbed the desk for support, knocking over my makeup case. Brushes and palettes scattered across the floor like my shattered life. A knock at the door. Vanessa stood there, perfect as always in her model pose. "Harper? The designer wants to discuss tomorrow's look." "Get out." My voice sounded strange, distant. "Are you okay? You look like someone who lost everything?" I laughed, harsh and broken. "While you're here living your dream career, my ex-husband and his new girlfriend are stealing my son." Vanessa stepped inside, closing the door. "Caleb's filing for custody? Don't pretend you care." I started picking up scattered makeup brushes, hands shaking. "This is what you wanted, right? To destroy my life?" "I never wanted." "Save it." A brush snapped in my grip. "You know what's funny? I thought doing your makeup, making you look perfect for these shows, would be my revenge. Show you both what you lost. But you didn't lose anything, did you? You got your career, your freedom. I'm the one who lost everything." "Harper, stop." Vanessa grabbed my hands, forcing me to look at her. "Caleb doesn't deserve Oliver. Or you. Or any woman. He's a narcissist who collects people like trophies. I learned that too late, but you're stronger than I ever was." I pulled away. "Strong? I'm in Paris doing makeup while another woman bakes cookies with my son." "No, you're in Paris building your career while Caleb plays house with his latest victim." She picked up my phone, showing me the cookie photo. "Look closer." I did. Behind Oliver's smiling face, I saw what she meant. The kitchen I'd loved was now stark white, my colorful curtains gone, my spice rack replaced with modern minimalism. Sarah's influence, erasing me piece by piece. "He's doing to her what he did to us," Vanessa said quietly. "Creating the perfect life, the perfect woman. Until she stops being perfect." My phone buzzed again. "Lily, don't panic. I've called your lawyer. Sarah's history of job hopping and 3 failed engagements won't look good in court. We've got this." Lily. Always fighting in my corner while I ran away to Paris. "The show starts in 12 hours, Vanessa said, gathering my scattered supplies. "Make me beautiful. Make me perfect. Then we'll talk about how to handle Caleb." I stared at her, this woman I'd hated for so long. "Why would you help me?" "Because I sent those first photos to you." She met my eyes steadily. I knew what he was doing to others, and I chose you to send them to. Because you seemed strong enough to break the cycle. The makeup brush felt different in my hand now. Not a tool for revenge, but for transformation. For both of us. Sit down, I said, my voice stronger. Let's make you unforgettable. Then you can tell me everything you know about Caleb's patterns. Every detail. Sometimes rock bottom isn't an ending. Sometimes it's where you find your strongest allies and your clearest purpose. The courthouse hallway felt endless. My heels clicked against marble as I approached the mediation room, Lily and my lawyer flanking me like guards. Through the glass, I could see Caleb and Sarah already seated, heads bent together in conversation. Remember, my lawyer whispered, stick to the facts. Don't let him provoke you. I nodded, clutching a manila envelope that contained everything Vanessa had given me in Paris: photos, emails, hotel receipts. A paper trail of destruction that led straight to Caleb's perfectly crafted facade. The door opened. Caleb stood, all corporate charm and practiced concern. Harper, you're looking well. Paris agreed with you. Let's skip the small talk. I sat across from him, noting how Sarah's hand tightened possessively on his arm. She looked younger in person, more vulnerable. Just his type. The mediator began with custody arrangements. Caleb's lawyer presented their case for primary custody, citing my unstable work schedule and international travel commitments. My client can provide consistency, he argued. A stable home environment with his fiancée. Fiancé? The word escaped before I could stop it. Sarah's diamond ring caught the fluorescent light, mocking me. Caleb smiled that familiar smile, the one that used to make me feel special, chosen. We were going to announce it this weekend. Oliver's already calling her mommy. The room tilted. Lily's hand found mine under the table as Caleb continued, it's time to be realistic, Harper. Oliver needs to know the truth? I opened the envelope, sliding the first photo across the table. About his father's pattern of manipulation? Caleb's smile faltered. Sarah leaned forward, confusion clouding her features as she studied the image. Caleb with another woman, dated just 2 weeks ago. This is irrelevant, Caleb's lawyer interjected, but I kept going, laying out photo after photo, email after email. 6 women in the past year, I said quietly. Each one thinking they were special, chosen. Each one manipulated into believing they were the only one. I turned to Sarah. Has he taken you to La Petite Maison in Paris yet? It's his favorite spot for proposals. Sarah's face drained of color. Caleb? She's lying, he snapped, but his mask was cracking. These are obviously doctored. The hotel receipts aren't doctored, I continued. Neither are the credit card statements or the burner phone records. Would you like to explain those? The mediator cleared her throat. Perhaps we should take a break. No. Sarah's voice shook. I want to hear this. She picked up one of the photos, studying it. This was last week. You said you were in Vancouver for work. Caleb stood abruptly, chair scraping against floor. This is ridiculous. I won't sit here and listen to these accusations. Sit down, Mr. Foster, the mediator ordered. Or this mediation ends and we move directly to court proceedings. He sat, but his eyes burned into mine. Why are you doing this? Because Oliver deserves better, I said simply. Better than watching you cycle through women, better than learning that lies and manipulation are normal. Better than becoming you. Sarah stood quietly, slipping off her engagement ring. It clinked against the table as she walked out, dignity intact, but shoulders shaking. You've ruined everything, Caleb hissed. No, I corrected him. You did that yourself. I'm just making sure you can't ruin anyone else. I turned to the mediator. I have a custody proposal. Joint legal custody, but Oliver's primary residence stays with me. Mr. Foster can have supervised visitation until he completes therapy and parenting classes. Caleb laughed bitterly. You think this makes you better than me? Destroying my relationship, my reputation? No, Caleb. This makes me different from you. Because unlike you, I'm thinking about Oliver's future, not my revenge. As we left the mediation room, Lily squeezed my hand. You okay? I watched Caleb through the glass, alone now, staring at the evidence of his destructive patterns spread across the table. For the first time, he looked small, ordinary, just a man who couldn't stop breaking things. Yeah, I said, surprising myself by meaning it. I really am. 1 year later, I sat in my home office, staring at the blinking cursor on my laptop screen. The blog post was almost finished, my 100th entry about surviving betrayal and rebuilding life after divorce. What had started as therapy had somehow become a lifeline for thousands of women going through similar struggles. A notification popped up. Vanessa Reed liked your post. We'd developed an unexpected friendship since Paris, bonding over our shared experience and determination to warn others about men like Caleb. Her modeling career had taken off, and she'd become an advocate for women's empowerment in the fashion industry. Oliver's laughter drifted through the open window. He was playing in the backyard with Caleb, their first unsupervised visit since the custody agreement. I watched them from my desk, noting how Caleb had changed. The designer suits were gone, replaced by casual clothes and genuine smiles. Therapy had stripped away his perfect facade, revealing something more human underneath. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Thank you for saving me from making a huge mistake. Getting married next month to someone real. Would love for you to do my makeup for the wedding. I smiled, remembering how she'd reached out months ago, wanting to understand what had happened. We'd met for coffee, two women healing from the same man's manipulation. Her engagement ring now belonged to someone who deserved her trust. Harper? Lily appeared in my doorway, carrying 2 glasses of wine. Your parents just called. They want to know if you're still coming to dinner tonight. Wouldn't miss it. I saved my blog post and closed the laptop. Dad's making his famous pot roast. The same pot roast from that awful dinner when everything started falling apart? The very same. I took a glass from her, remembering that night. Who would have thought that was actually the beginning of everything coming together? Outside, Oliver squealed as Caleb pushed him on the swing. Higher and higher, but not too high, Caleb was learning boundaries, finally understanding that love wasn't about possession or perfection. Your latest post is trending, Lily noted, scrolling through her phone. The one about forgiveness, not meaning reconciliation. It's what everyone struggles with most. I watched Oliver jump from the swing into Caleb's arms. Learning that you can forgive someone while still choosing yourself. The doorbell rang. My date for dinner, a kind-eyed photographer I'd met at Fashion Week. We were taking things slowly, both carrying our own histories, both understanding that trust is earned in small moments rather than grand gestures. Time to go in, I called out the window. Oliver ran inside, Caleb following more slowly. Thanks for today, he said, lingering in the doorway. And for everything else. The therapy recommendations, the second chance with Oliver. We're both doing better this way, I replied simply. After they left, Oliver for his playdate, Caleb to his own life, my date to reschedule for another time, I returned to my laptop. The cursor still blinked, waiting for me to finish my story. I typed, revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about reconstruction, building yourself into something stronger than before. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, loving deeply, and letting go of the perfect picture you thought your life would be. Lily read over my shoulder. That's it? That's how you're ending it? No, I said, adding one final line, because the end of one story is just the beginning of another. And this time, I'm writing my own. I hit publish and stood up, ready for dinner with my parents. Ready for whatever came next. The manila envelope of Caleb's indiscretions still sat in my desk drawer, untouched for months. I didn't need it anymore. Its purpose had been served, not just in saving me, but in saving others too. Outside, the sunset painted Seattle in shades of possibility. My phone buzzed with notifications as the blog post went live. Each one representing someone else finding their way through darkness toward something real. Sometimes the happiest endings aren't about getting everything you wanted, but about discovering what you actually needed. And sometimes, just sometimes, those two things turn out to be completely different stories.